Utie oha echi ponkno. Needs FM.
On track. In all this, the analysis you make fantastic as the gentleman, though opposed to you, concedes.
It's his conclusion which I didn't like. Because we have been underestimating, if the NDC, the NDC, for example, will be making a terrible mistake as I'm sitting here, downplaying the effect of COVID. Because one, we don't know how long it will last. Like 2.5 years of doomsday. Right? We wouldn't know. And it's going to be severer. So we better come in prepared. Right? As an opposition.
Okay, we will come to think about how we went into certain funds to alleviate our hardship and then the private sector support that came through. But then in all this and the analysis you make, President of the Republic taking mindful of how his finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, had fared in this COVID era, went out to town and said that John Dramani Mahama could go down as the worst president in the light of mismanagement of the economy. And obviously, you can't take Seth Terkper out of it. What have you got to say to that?
With all due respect to His Excellency, our president, he is my president. And I blame those who gave him that awful statistics. They are the ones I would say are responsible. One, we had one oil field, 70,000 barrels per day. From day one of 2017, it increased above 100,000. Today, we are talking about nearly 200,000 barrels per day. Somebody made that investment because we have not invested in any new oil field. Is that the West government we are talking about? The West government has invested in 3 oil fields.
West in terms of mismanagement.
I'll come to how we use oil revenue. Remember, I was talking about it. Right? If John Mahama had dissipated the oil revenue, right? If John Mahama had not, despite the difficulties, built the stabilization fund, if John Mahama had not set up ESLA, which is what is being used to pay the banking sector and all that, would you call him, But let me run through the list. Why we did not leave, a West economy and why John Mahama cannot be described as such. So I'm saying that you have 200,000, nearly 200,000 barrels of crude oil compared to 70,000, which was not even realized because of the tariff bearing. You remember all those, things. Revenue was less than 1 billion. You are enjoying almost 5 billion and is in the budget. Almost 5 billion, annually of oil revenue. Prices. Today, crude oil prices are about $45, $45. I'm sure you this morning. This was a level of crude oil prices with one oil field, with which we got 3.6% of GDP, which is being called non-performance. And we had to grapple with this level of oil price for 1.5 years, 2015 through 2016. Right? As I said, some countries went into recession because of this. Now, secondly, ESLA. ESLA is bringing in, and I'm quoting from the 2019 ESLA report. ESLA is bringing in 28 billion, or is to bring in 28 billion Ghana cedis by 2022. As we speak, ESLA has brought in nearly 20 billion. ESLA was meant to pay creditors for roads and meant to clear the energy sector debt. If we are being told which we use to clear part of the banking sector debt, if we have this much revenue, why do we still have people bailouts not being paid? Why are we issuing bond without interest for 5 years? This is revenue which was described as a nuisance tax, don't forget, and which will be cancelled immediately in 2017.
You appear pained by recollection of such description.
No, I am only reminding Ghanaians. What
as something that was described as nuisance
tax
appears to be at the helm now.
Exactly. And the fact that the government that promised that they will cancel it, and didn't cancel it, but rather increase the rate last year.
Because it was helpful.
Of course, that's the one which is being used to pay the depositors and the rest. So when my president describes his predecessor as worse, if he had cancelled this, can you imagine what the banking sector would be today?
But as you describe his predecessor as worse to the extent that he's now giving free electricity, free water, extra payment to frontline workers. So obviously,
when we had a crisis, IMF was not available to give money to developing countries.
Okay.
At virtually no interest rate.
Compared to the COVID.
Compared to COVID. So you are giving these things from a loan, the largesse of the IMF. If we were managing well, right? And I said, that's why you don't want to sound callous. Why go to the IMF? You had hesitated. You see, the essence of exiting IMF is tested during crisis. Not when times are good for you.
The essence of going to IMF is tested during crisis.
During crisis.
So why did you go to IMF then?
Of course.
Why did you go?
No, we were playing to Ghanaians and said that because of the global financial crisis and others, the IMF is the lender of last resort. Right? Right?
Yet you went to IMF and you couldn't give us any freebies. And he has gone to IMF
no,
and it's giving us freebies.
No, we didn't go to we went to the IMF for other reasons, for structural reasons. Right? And I'm saying that there must be a little humbling after 3 oil fields and the rest.
At to go and take, is now fuller.
No, to go exactly. And on top of all this, there must be a little humbling, please, for going for a loan to come and support and boast that you generated it when me and my, and our children are going to pay.
So the bottom line is that you are giving us the freebies, and it is not like you have worked so hard to put something in the kitty, but it is like you are giving us on against the backdrop of largesse from the IMF.
Exactly.
And we should be humble enough to say so.
Remember, besides the nuisance tax, there was a no borrowing pledge. And no borrowing is tested when you have a crisis. If everything is good for you and you don't have to, then you don't boast that I'm not going to borrow. Right? For example, if no calamity comes to the family, and let me go back to the household. If no calamity comes to the family, and you have a reasonable income, and I presume that you have a reasonable income, of course you can boast that I'm managing the household very well. But it's when a calamity comes then that your boasting will be tested.
It will be tested. Or you may be exposed by the calamity.
Precisely, by the fundamentals. Which you said were good, but were probably not so good.
Let me read some few messages here.
Well, I don't expect everybody to, to agree with what I'm saying. But I think there's a saying that I may disagree with what you are saying, but I have a right, to say it. Now, let me just finish off. Now, again, the non-performing government. You remember when we issued our first sovereign bond? Was in 2007. Before leaving office, we paid off 300 million of that bond, 750. That would have fallen due in 2017. That is 10 years. We refinanced another 250 million. Now, there was 200 million in the sinking fund, in all 500 million that we took from the sinking fund to pay down the sovereign bond, the first one, that would have fallen due in 2017, which the Akufo-Addo government would have had to pay. It's okay that there's no acknowledgement, but the fact is that the sinking fund, even with 3 oil fields, was being depleted. We don't know why it was being depleted. Because
besides the IMF largesse,
that was even being depleted before, before the IMF. That was, again, this is why I keep saying that let's separate COVID from non-COVID. Because what were we using those monies for? In addition to the oil revenue and the capital, right? But the important point I'm making is that if that 500 million of oil revenue had not been used, to pay down the bond, obviously, because, we had the interest of Ghanaians at heart. Those who, we had the interest of, and we didn't, the debt burden was becoming too heavy. So you had to get a mechanism for slowing it down, right? The administration took 200 million from that sinking fund which we had accumulated and used it to pay the balance. The Akufo-Addo administration was paid the refinancing of $750 million US. In other words, the 1 billion sovereign bond that they did in 2017 would have been 1.75 billion just to roll over the debt that was taken. I think this is a credible, achievement, and not the work, of a worse or useless, president for that matter. Now, but the more important thing is that even with 3 oil fields, we have not been able to redeem any more bonds. What we have done is that we have just thrown the bonds out 15 years, 25 years, 40 years. And today, that is the reason why, one, you can see, your viewers may not see, but you can see from this graph that during the Mahama administration, the rate at which we were borrowing was going down. And that's the only way you reduce the debt. From 2017, you can see it has changed. It started increasing again, right from 2017. Right? Is this the work, of a West government? It cannot be the work of a West government, which has been reducing the debt with 1 oil field compared with 3, which was going to the sinking fund. And yet, our rate of borrowing has started going up, again. Right? Our rate of borrowing has started going up, again. And this is what I'm saying. You can see that the debt has been increasing. This is the total debt that has been increasing. And you can see that the rate at which we were borrowing was going down, and then it started going up again. Even without bailout and energy costs, it was going down, and it has started going up again from 2018. Right? So this past achievement of slowing down the debt versus increasing the debt, which one is worse performance? Which is worse performance?
So you would dare
and we have been
with the finance minister with this your analysis?
No, obviously. By the way,
and you believe you are on top.
By the way, this is not NDC report.
It is.
This is 2019 annual debt management report signed by Honorable Ken Oforiatta. Yeah. So I'm showing
you are dwelling on the same report that he
the fundamentals out. Cannot be hidden. It's there. It's showing that this is showing that the fundamentals are worsening, and that's why we are being warned by EIU and others that our debt could reach 83, percent of GDP.
You begin to talk about the debt, but then still on.
Needs FM.